Again, with generally light winds, we are going to see temperatures tumbling, a hint of blue there on the chart. So in rural areas, frost is likely across parts of northern England and Scotland for sure. Even further south, some pockets of frost in rural areas are possible. Gardeners, take note. A chilly start then again tomorrow morning, but generally dry and a bright start with plenty of sunshine. Will cloud over a bit through the day, and again, it's these eastern areas that could be quite glum and quite gloomy. And again, here it will be quite chilly for the time of year. Temperatures only 10, 11, 12 at best. Whereas further west with a bit of sunshine, 15, 16, maybe a little bit higher in one or two spots. High pressure continues to dominate, but it is sinking south, sitting pretty much slap bang across the UK for the second half of this week, continuing to keep things dry, but continuing with a risk of nighttime frosts.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's, and... Has anyone seen Mercy? No? OK, she's off today, taking a well-earned break, so it's just me, I'm afraid. I'll be live on your TV, radio and online. Massive show today. I'm asking whether or not the way we treat our veterans is absolutely shameful. Do you know, we're the only news outlet yesterday to cover the Anzac Day ceremony live. I think that's an absolute scandal. I'm also going to be going head-to-head, cyclist versus driver. Who owns the road? And, of course, as well, got a psychologist on. Is it a bit weird if you're in a relationship with a massive age gap? Not mentioning Emmanuel Macron, but we all know who it's about. Right, keep your opinions coming in. Make sure you get in touch as well. GBviews at gbnews.uk. We'll be going to those throughout the show, but first it's time for your latest headlines. Let's do it.
A very good morning. It's just 1 minute past 10. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. Russia is accusing NATO of waging a proxy war with Moscow by arming Ukraine. The country's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, says weapons sent to Kiev by the West are legitimate targets. Russia says its air forces hit 87 military targets in Ukraine overnight, killing around 500 servicemen. Well, the UK Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, says individual countries are supplying military aid, not NATO.
NATO is reinforcing the alliance's eastern flank as a defensive measure to reassure our Eastern European allies. NATO is not the donor community. Many of the people in the donor community are NATO countries, but similarly, Australians, the Kiwis and others are part of it as well.
Meanwhile, the UN Secretary-General is meeting the Russian president in Moscow before travelling to Ukraine to meet President Zelensky. Antonio Guterres stopped in Ankara en route for talks with the Turkish president, who hosted the last round of peace talks a month ago. Ukraine has asked the UN to act as an initiator and a guarantor of any agreement to evacuate civilians from a steel plant in the city of Mariupol. The Labour Party is again calling for an emergency budget to tackle the cost of living crisis, reiterating the need for a windfall tax on oil and gas companies. Well, the Prime Minister is expected to urge his cabinet this morning to come up with innovative ideas to ease the financial pressure on households without relying on new government spending. The consumer champion Helen Juney says the situation for many people is heartbreaking.
A few months ago, it was whether people could heat or eat. Well, now they can do neither. You know, they can't heat up the food. Food banks are sort of in desperate need because they're not getting the donations because people can't afford to donate, and then people need it more.
Heathrow Airport has been hit by more than £4 billion in losses as a result of the pandemic, and it's going to make another loss this year. Demand for travel is still volatile. Passenger numbers are currently 65% of pre-COVID levels. While rising fuel costs, reduced disposable income, the war in Ukraine and the ongoing pandemic are all being blamed. The Speaker of the House of Commons is going to meet the editor of the Mail on Sunday over an article published about the Deputy Labour leader, which has widely been condemned as sexist. An anonymous Conservative MP was quoted as saying that Angela Rayner used her legs to distract Boris Johnson during Prime Minister's questions. The Speaker described it as misogynistic and offensive. The number of children in the UK with hepatitis has risen to 114, according to the World Health Organization. 10 have needed a liver transplant. The UK Health Security Agency say most of the cases of liver inflammation are in under fives. Experts are still trying to understand the cause of the spike in hepatitis. Doctors are going to vote on reducing GPs' working hours to 9 to 5, as many of them have raised concerns they're at risk of burning out. Opening hours at the moment for a GP practice are 8 a.m. to 6:30 normally, but medics say current workloads are unsustainable and potentially unsafe. Well, the vote's going to take place at the British Medical Association conference next month. Twitter's founder, Jack Dorsey, is welcoming the £34 billion takeover of the company by the world's richest man. He says Elon Musk's bid is the only solution he trusts. Well, the Tesla chief executive is buying the company for £42.20 a share. Twitter originally rejected the offer, but the board reconsidered when Mr. Musk demonstrated he'd secured finances for the deal. In the US now, body cam footage has been released showing emergency workers on the set of the film Rust after the cinematographer Helena Hutchins was fatally shot. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office is still investigating the shooting last October by the actor Alec Baldwin. He's seen in the footage waiting outside the church where the incident happened. Video's also been released of Baldwin drawing a gun during a rehearsal. He told police it should have been empty or loaded with blanks.
It should have been a cold gun with no rounds inside or dummy rounds, cosmetic rounds, no flash. I take the gun out slowly, I cock the pistol, bang, it goes up, she hits the ground, she goes down. He goes down, screaming. He's like, Jesus Christ, and I'm going. And I thought that maybe sometimes the wadding can come out if you're closer, you get a burn.
The film's director, Joel Souza, was also shot but survived. He's seen in the body cam footage describing what happened.
Sorry, I'm trying.
It's okay, take
a very loud bang, and it felt like somebody kicked me in the shoulder, and then I was down on my and then I looked over and see the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, with blood coming out of her back.
Holding a what? I'm sorry?
With blood coming out of her back.
Okay.
She was between me and I think where the gun went off, and I think it went through her and into me.
The extra bank holiday this year in honour of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee on the 3rd of June could become a permanent fixture. The Chancellor is going to consider proposals made by campaigners to make the date an annual day off. The idea has got wide support from the Confederation of British Industry and the Archbishop of Canterbury. And the day this year is designed to be a thank holiday, recognising the Queen's service. You're up to date on GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's head back to Patrick for The Point.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christie's on your TV, radio and online. No Mercy today. She's taking a well-earned break, so you are stuck with me, I'm afraid. But we've got a massive show lined up for you to kickstart your day, so let's get cracking, people, all right? Are we showing enough respect to our veterans? No, is the answer. I don't think we are, and you'll hear exactly why shortly. I'll also be talking to Trevor Colt, a veteran and a Military Cross recipient, who I think is well placed to tell us all about that. And it's day 61 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The UN General Secretary is in Moscow to try and calm things down. Good luck to him. We'll be going live to Ukraine for the very latest. And migration from outside the EU has increased since we left. We'll be discussing, do we finally have control of our borders? I think that's laughable given what's going on the channel. Or frankly, are there still too many people coming to the UK? Get in touch on that one, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Got all of that coming up and much, much more across the programme. You get in touch. That email, yet again, people, gbviews@gbnews.uk. But first, I want to talk to you about respect, or lack of anyway, for our veterans. I was absolutely staggered that GB News was the only news outlet to cover the Anzac Day Memorial live. In fact, I'm actually disgusted about that, but sadly, not surprised. Anzac Day commemorates the lives lost by our Australian and New Zealand brothers and sisters who laid down their lives to help win the First World War. Some 8,709 Australians and 2,721 Kiwis, apparently, gave the ultimate sacrifice at Gallipoli alone. Lest we forget. But of course, the majority of our media thinks this is less important than whether or not Angela Rayner flashed her legs at Boris Johnson at the dispatch box, and maybe even something else. But this is symptomatic of how we treat our veterans in this country. Can you imagine losing your legs in Baghdad, developing catastrophic PTSD, being unable to work again, and then you find out that someone who came to this country illegally in a dinghy has got free accommodation in a hotel while you're left to rot on the street? In fact, it's not free, is it, actually? Because the British taxpayer is funding it. Our veterans are supposed to get priority housing and mental health care, as enshrined by the military covenant. And yet many of our war heroes just line the streets. I don't think it's unreasonable to suggest that a veteran would have more chance getting a roof over their head and 3 square meals a day if they came home from a war zone, got a bus to Calais and arrived back in the UK in a dinghy. The historic prosecutions of our veterans is an absolute scandal as well. Take the case of Dennis Hutchings. He was 80 years old and he was standing trial for the alleged murder of John Pat Cunningham in 1974. He'd been cleared of this twice already, by the way. Yet he was dragged back to Northern Ireland, where he died alone in a hospital bed, having been denied the dignity of returning home to take his final breaths. We send people into the most dangerous situations imaginable. We train people to run towards the gunfire, the inferno, in the name of Queen and country. And then when they make a split-second decision in the heat of battle, sometimes they'll get a knock on the door 40 years later and they're hauled before a kangaroo court where all of a sudden they're accused of being a murderer. Meanwhile, of course, we give the IRA terrorists letters of immunity so they can get away scot-free despite the fact they let a bomb off in a busy pub. There's quite literally no justice here, is there? Is it any wonder we have a recruitment military? We hang our veterans out to dry. But the shameful way we treat our veterans runs deeper than this. It is symptomatic, actually, of the tendency in this country to see patriotism as a dirty thing. We can't praise Britain without also mentioning some stuff that we're not proud of. Why? Why is that relevant? The usual worthy types who, by the way, I'm convinced wouldn't even fight for this country if another war kicked off, say you're patriotic or proud to be British, then, well, if you are, you're just some kind of flag-waving little nationalist. Well, hang on a minute. All of Europe would only have one flag, the Nazi flag, if it wasn't for us, frankly. People are always like, oh, don't bring up the war. Well, to that I say, which one? Because if we hadn't have stepped in on either occasion, then Europe wouldn't exist. The idea that we could be spoken down to by the leader of Luxembourg, a postage stamp of a nation that makes Yorkshire look like a continent, is laughable. What short memories our European friends appear to have. I find it hilarious that the very people who tell us that national pride is a bad thing are the ones with the Ukrainian flag in their front window or as a bumper sticker on their cars. Refugees welcome, they all say. Fair enough, absolutely fine. But why not house a veteran instead? Where are the veterans' welcome signs? People seem to think it makes them a good person if they invite someone from Syria into their spare room. The reality is that on the way to pick that person up from the airport and drive them back to their massive house in Hampstead, they've probably passed a homeless man who's fought for this country and is now suffering as a result. It doesn't make any sense to me. The fact is, the BBC would rather cover a meaningless story about unconscious bias than cover the memorial to the war dead. I thought the first B stood for British, but apparently not. It's about time we looked after our veterans. I won't stop going on about this at all. If we can spend £5 million a day on hotels for people who ditch their passports in the Channel, then surely we can spend the same on housing people who've actually fought for this country. Right, I'm going to be returning to this throughout the show. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Keep that coming in. Do you think that the way that we treat veterans in this country is an absolute scandal? That Anzac Day stuff was sickening for me. I couldn't believe it. We have screens in the office just over there showing what the news channels are doing, you know, multi-TV stuff. I'm sure you can all imagine it. And we threw live to Prince William laying a wreath at the cenotaph for the war dead, right? So commemorate our New Zealand and Australian brothers and sisters who laid down their lives to help win the First World War. And we're the only ones doing it. I think that's absolutely sickening. But we are going to be returning to this throughout the show. In fact, you can see Prince William. If you are listening on radio there, we're showing a clip of Prince William there. But get in touch about this. Do you think that we should be prioritising our veterans, maybe, over some other people that we invite into this country? £5 million a day we're spending on hotels for asylum seekers. OK, some of them might be going to Rwanda, some of them may well not be. But hang on a second, does charity start at home for you? Let me know. Hey, if you disagree with me, that's all gravy. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Let me know if you think I'm talking absolute gibberish or whether or not you think I'm right. We're going to go shortly anyway to Trevor Colt, who is, of course, a Military Cross recipient, a veteran. He does loads of work in the veterans community, and he knows his onions, frankly, when it comes to fighting and giving service for this country. And I want to know what he thinks about whether or not, of course, we actually treat our veterans that well. Now, OK, we are actually going to be, hopefully later on anyway, also going to be going to a current veteran, frankly, a current member of the Ukrainian military, Alexei Gocharenko, who is an MP who's obviously kind of taken up arms as well and is doing his bit as well in Ukraine, because it's day 61 of the war in Ukraine. And United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres is actually in Moscow today for talks with Vladimir Putin in an attempt to resolve the war. Hopefully he doesn't get Novichoked. This comes as Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was sabre-rattling, warning of the danger of World War III. He accused NATO and the West of being at war with Russia, which I think is absolutely laughable. He said, quote, NATO, in essence, is engaged in a war with Russia through a proxy and is arming that proxy. All this comes, of course, as intense fighting in the Donbass region of eastern Ukraine continues. And there was a report yesterday that, you know, if there are any young ones around you now, just close their ears for a second and maybe move them to one side. But a really devastating report. You can go into much more graphic detail than what I'm about to do now if you just Google it online. But showing the sheer devastation that happened in Bucha, the things that happen to young girls. You don't need me to go into the specifics of that, but it's been confirmed now. And people, women as well, with their hands tied behind their back, killed by machine gun fire to the back. And I think that speaks volumes of the kind of person that we're up against. But we are going to be going very shortly anyway, hopefully, to Ukraine. But before that, I'm going to be joined by an Army veteran, Trevor Colt. I mentioned him just a little bit earlier on. Talk about how well we really treat our veterans. Get in touch on this. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Do you think we're prioritising the wrong people in a way? Don't go away.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A dry and bright day for many of us. Cloud will build through the afternoon with showers for some, but no really significant rainfall in the forecast for today or the next few days as high pressure builds once again from the north, and we've got this north to northeasterly airflow, so it's turning a little chillier, and we'll notice that at night with a few overnight frosts, but also it's keeping things dry and bright for the vast majority. The best of the sunshine will be across central, southern and western parts of the UK, so for Northern Ireland, Wales, southern England. There'll be a few showers in the thicker cloud across northern and eastern England, and Scotland's going to be mostly dry, if rather cloudy. It will feel cool, particularly along that east coast, 9 to 12 Celsius with a cool easterly breeze, but 15 or 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland, where we do see some sunny spells. The cloud and any showers tend to fade away overnight, leaving largely clear skies, and under those clear skies, with that colder air in place, we'll see a touch of frost. In some of the sheltered spots across northern parts of the country, -2, -3 Celsius is possible. Could even see a -1 in southern areas. But in urban parts, I think we'll be frost-free. and it will be largely dry and bright once again as we start off Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, on the whole, is a sunnier day for Scotland and northern England, but a cloudier day further south. Nevertheless, 15 to 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, and 9 to 12 further north, but feeling more pleasant, I think, with the greater sunnier skies across Scotland and northern England compared to today, and virtually everywhere will be dry. And really that's the theme that continues for the rest of the week. Thursday, Friday into Saturday as well. High pressure holds on. It won't be entirely sunny all the time. There will be areas of cloud floating around, but it will be largely dry and bright.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's 10:21. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News, live, as ever, on your TV, online and radio this morning. No time to hang around, ladies and gentlemen, OK. We are going to Paris, I believe, bizarrely, to speak to Ukrainian Member of Parliament Alexei Goncharenko, who is a regular on this show. You will know Alexei very well by now. Alexei, thank you very much. We really appreciate you joining us. Before I ask why on earth you're in Paris, can you just tell us what the latest is from Ukraine? Because a devastating report came out yesterday which really highlighted the true extent of Russian war crimes. Mass rape, some of that of children, and women shot in the back with machine guns. Talk to me about that.
Yes, absolutely. Unfortunately, 2 days ago, there was a massive attack in Odessa, missile attacks. I've been in Odessa at the moment. I've heard everything by myself, the explosions. 8 people were killed, including 3-month-old baby, a little girl she was killed together with her mother and grandmother. Also, one more young couple and wife was pregnant. were killed. It's so absolutely horrific and awful. And it happened on Orthodox Easter, because on Sunday we had an Orthodox Easter both in Ukraine and in Russia. So, you know, it's very like in Bible said that the blood of newborns is on their hands. So Putin and Russian army are real devil's sons and Herod's sons. So like everything, once again, like in the Bible said. We know that now we see satellite images of mass graves near Mariupol, where thousands of people are buried. We don't know the exact number because this part is occupied by Russian army. The last stronghold in Mariupol, Azovstal, which is still controlled by Ukraine, there are hundreds of civilians there still waiting for humanitarian corridors, and they're not giving these corridors to people. That's a new war crime committed by Russians. And that's why I'm now in France. I left Ukraine for the first time since the start of invasion, because yesterday evening, the Council of Europe, Parliamentary Assembly of Council of Europe.
Yeah, but what are they doing, Alexei? This is the thing, Alexei. Sorry to interrupt, Alexei. This is. I'm really keen to get your view on this. Okay, what are they doing? As far as I can see, a lot of our European friends, supposedly friends, sit around. They have meaningless meetings. They say that they want to support you, but they're not giving you the weapons you need, are they? Or are they now?
Today will be a meeting in Rammstein military base in Germany of more than 40 ministers of defense. The initiator is Lloyd Austin, American Minister of Defense. By the way, the United Kingdom is one of the states and countries which shows leadership in this question and is helping Ukraine enormously with weapons. I hope that American Minister of Defense, together with British Minister of Defense, will convince their colleagues to help Ukraine to prevent these horrors which are taking place in Ukraine. And here in Council of Europe, together, by the way, with British, because I'm a member of conservative group in the Parliamentary Assembly, we will try to make our best to have a very strong report and very strong sanctions against Russia.
Make that plea now. Come on, look straight down the barrel, Alexei, and tell me exactly like you would tell the likes of the German leaders, Emmanuel Macron, come on, you know, his defence minister, whoever that is. Tell them straight away now. Tell me what you're going to tell them, OK? Make that case. Why do they need to send you weapons? Come on.
It's time to show that you have nuts. It's time to show that you can make real decisions and to show the dictators throughout the whole planet that free world can unite and can be strong enough to stop any mad dictator like Putin. So that is the time to show leadership and to show that you really is worth of respect from your own citizens and from the whole world.
Ask you something that I don't think you may have been asked before. I hope you don't mind me saying it. If Vladimir Putin was in front of you right now, what would you say or do?
It's nothing to say here. We just need to kill him, that's all.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair enough.
And I will do it by my own hands.
Yeah, look, exactly. There is a special place in hell for Vladimir Putin and the generals and, frankly, anyone who's going along with this. Part of me, Alexei, I don't know how you would feel about this. Again, I'm intrigued to get your view. Part of me feels a little bit sorry for some of the Russian conscripts, the younger ones, who maybe didn't know at the start of the war exactly what they were doing. But then you look at what's been going on since, and I think it's impossible to feel sorry for any of them now, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's something we inform them. It's time of internet. Everybody of them could go to internet and just see, are there real Nazis in Ukraine? Oh, they are acting like Nazis. That was their choice to do it like they did. So I'm not sorry about them. I'm sorry about the humanity at all, because I'm shocked that it is possible in 21st century. That is my shock. That is my concern. Yeah. But I cannot, be pity of the destiny of every one of them, because they did their choice and they can do it even now. They can surrender. They can leave the army. They cannot commit the war crimes. If they will do this, they should be responsible for this.
Alexei, you are an absolute hero, and I really hope, Alexei, that when all is said and done and you send the Russians packing, right, I would love to come and meet you in person and chat to you in person, because we speak all the time on this show.
Thank you very much.
You are an absolute inspiration.
I would be happy to.
Good stuff. Well, we'll make it happen, all right. But you stay safe in the meantime, all right? And good luck today. Come on, it's about time our European friends and allies put their money where their mouth is, stop caring about Russian gas and oil, and go and arm the Ukrainians and send those Russians packing. Alexei Goncharenko there, thank you very much. Of course, a member of Parliament in Ukraine. Talk to us from Paris, where there's this big meeting today. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen. Get in touch with me on this. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Do you think history will remember the Germans well in this situation? Do you think it will remember the French well in this situation? I don't think it will. The fact is that on the continent there, we were told, weren't we, as Britain, little Englanders, this, what is it, weather-beaten rock in the middle of the ocean. We were told, oh, you know, we've got some horrible values here. It's amazing, isn't it, given how many people want to come over here? But we've got some horrible values. And yet, when a war kicks off, and we can see war crimes, and we can see the rape of, well, loads of people, children as well, you know, firebombing schools, this, that and the other, and the Germans send 5,000 helmets. Cheers. Thank you very much. You know what we're doing, along with the US, to be fair? We're sending weapons. It's all very well and good for the EU to do what the EU does best. And we're this lovely, virtuous, fluffy bastion of liberalism on the continent and everything that sounds great. OK, fine. Do you understand that there is actually a genocide taking place just around the corner there, and all they're going to do is tokenism? This is what they're doing. They go, well, we'll set up a committee and we'll look into the war crimes. You're not going to nick Putin, right? You're not, OK? You're not going to lift Putin. He just won't leave Russia. And even if he did, frankly, do we trust the fact that maybe the French or the Germans would actually go and get him? No, of course they wouldn't, because it's Vladimir Putin. Instead of actually trying to prevent the war crimes taking place, like we are here, by sending them weapons to defend themselves, the EU will just clean up afterwards. We'll do a war crimes committee where we'll shake our fist at people who've killed kids, and that'll be that for them. Or they'll go, OK, you know what, we'll house a load of refugees. We are trying to stop the amount of refugees that there is going to have to be. We're trying to stop the amount of displaced people by making sure the Russians don't actually take Ukraine. If the EU had it their way, Ukraine would now already be Russian. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Now, I did open the show as well by giving my views on how I think veterans in this country aren't given the respect and, frankly, the standing that I think they deserve. This is something I know that many of our viewers and listeners feel very passionately about. And as well at GB News, we believe in empowering you to have your say. And I have got loads of people getting in touch with me, loads of people, to express their concerns about the way that we speak, or the way that we treat, our veterans. Now, loads of people, Ken has been in touch. It's absolutely shameful. Veterans deserve priority above everybody else. I think that's an interesting way of discussing it. Someone as well, Kevin, been in touch. Thank you very much, Kevin, to raise concerns about why isn't the Archbishop speaking about our veterans? And I think that's a very good point, that, Kevin, I must say. We all feel all these refugees welcome people, don't we? What about veterans welcome? You know, you can go outside right now and house a homeless veteran if you want. You won't have to look very hard either, because there are thousands of them lining the streets. It's horrific the way the ex-armed forces are just chucked on the scrap pile. A lot of these humans have had life-changing and horrible experiences that will affect them for the rest of their lives. That's from Stuart. And I couldn't agree more. Stuart, just on that note, I actually slept rough for 3 nights in London, Manchester and Leeds to try to, it's a few years ago now, try to raise awareness for homeless military veterans. And I was staggered because there is a thing called the Military Covenant, OK? So actually what that says is that local authorities, so your local council, wherever you are in the country right now, your local council, OK, should be giving priority housing and mental health care to military veterans who are obviously homeless or need mental health care. But that's not happening. They're just not doing it, OK? And they had to really be forced into doing it. And I find that absolutely staggering. How do you feel about that? Loads of you as well obviously have been in touch. By the way, you can get in touch with us on Twitter as well, at GB News. Totally agree with you, thanks Les, on the disgusting way our veterans are treated. I fail to see how we find the money to accommodate, she says, illegal immigrants, some would say asylum seekers, of course, allow our veterans to become homeless. And this is my point, Les. Thank you very much for getting in touch, because, hang on a minute, we all of a sudden, 5 million big ones a day, and you can rent out a Holiday Inn, you can take a chain out, a Britannia hotel, you can use up local private housing stock for people who, frankly, sometimes, this is not a comment on the genuine asylum seekers, right? So don't jump on me now, people who read The Guardian. It's not a comment on genuine asylum seekers. But actually, there are a lot of people who we don't know who they are or where they come from or what, you know, their motivations may well be, and we can use hotels and private housing stock for them. We know who fought for this country. There's a list of names. In fact, there's a list of war dead as well. There's a list of names of people, a register, a roll call of people who fought and given the ultimate sacrifice for this country. And we haven't got the money for that, have we? I think our priorities are all wrong. Now, look as well, we are now doing something a little bit new, a bit different here on To The Point, where I like to get you on the show, OK? Now, obviously, I can't tell you to leave your phone number in an email. I couldn't possibly tell you to do that. I'm sure there's some issues surrounding that. But if you did leave your number in an email, then maybe I can give you a call and get you on the show so you can give your views on a burning topic. And we've got two people lined up today. The first one is Philip, and he will be on very, very shortly to give his views on exactly this. But after the break, does Brexit mean that we are now in control of our borders? I'll be discussing this with two expert guests. So do you feel like we've got control of immigration now that we've left the European Union? But before that, let's have a look at this morning's news. Stay tuned, people.
It's 10:33. Good morning. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date. Russia's foreign minister is accusing NATO of waging a proxy war in Ukraine. Sergei Lavrov says weapons sent to Kiev by the West are legitimate targets. But the UK's Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, says individual countries are supplying military aid, not NATO. Well, those comments come as Germany agrees to send anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine. The Prime Minister is expected to urge his cabinet to come up with innovative ideas to ease financial pressures on households during a meeting this morning. The government's renewing its push to promote the existing package of support instead of relying on new spending. Heathrow has been hit by more than £4 billion in losses as a result of the pandemic, and the airport is forecasting another loss this year. They say demand for travel is still volatile. Rising fuel costs, reduced disposable income, the war in Ukraine and the ongoing pandemic are all being blamed. Twitter's founder, Jack Dorsey, has welcomed the £34 billion takeover of the company by the world's richest man. He says Elon Musk's bid is the only solution he trusts. The Tesla chief executive is buying Twitter for £42.20 a share. The extra bank holiday this year in honour of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee on the 3rd of June could become a permanent fixture. The Chancellor is going to consider the proposals made by campaigners to make the date an annual day off. The idea has wide support from the Confederation of British Industry and the Archbishop of Canterbury. You're up to date, but on your TV, online and DAB+ radio. Shortly, we'll be back to Patrick for To The Point.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Yes, morning everybody, it's 10:36. We're off to an absolute flyer so far today. Loads of you have been flooding my inbox with views about the way we treat our veterans. We're going to go to a military veteran and indeed a recipient of the Military Cross very, very shortly. But before that, well, white nationalists, bigots, little Englanders. These are just some of the insults hurled at over 17 million of you in this country who voted to leave the European Union. While voting to leave the EU has led to a reduction in immigration from European countries, it's actually resulted in a sharp increase in immigration from outside the EU. Now, according to the Home Office, Indian professionals accounted for the largest number of skilled visas granted last year, with 67,839, 68,000, make it a lot easier for ourselves, issued. A 14% increase from 2019. Is that what you voted for? Has taking back control of our borders meant that we can let in exactly who we want? Or are the numbers of people coming into this country still too high? What's your view? Let me know. GBViews, gbnews.uk. But joining me now to delve right into this are two expert guests. We've got Out Mehmet, the chair of Migration Watch UK, and Dr. Rakiba Sana, columnist at Spiked and social policy analyst. Two esteemed guests. Goodness gracious me, it's difficult to know where to start. Alp, you can take the baton first and foremost. Are you disappointed with the way we've managed our borders post-Brexit?
The way we've managed, you said.
Well, yeah, true.
Or you should say the way we haven't managed them. Look, let me give you a quote and tell me where it came from. It's absolutely outrageous to condemn people who have concerns about one of the greatest movements of people in human history as racist. Do you know who said that? The Archbishop of Canterbury in March 2016. That's why people were concerned. They were concerned about the fact that the scale of immigration and from the EU totally uncontrolled was leading to so many hundreds of thousands of millions of people coming here. So it wasn't ever the individuals, it wasn't ever immigrants, it was the scale of immigration that concerned people.
Absolutely.
And we were promised that it was going to be controlled, and nothing of the sort has happened. That's the problem.
All right, Alp. Now, Dr. Rakiba, so I'm going to throw over to you. You do a lot of work when it comes to, I suppose, the social elements of, well, society, I suppose. And I'm keen to get your view on demographics, right? Because I think when a lot of people thought, well, hey, we'll quote-unquote take back control of our borders, I think people thought that meant less immigration. It may well mean, in the long run, less immigration, but it will mean more people from outside the European Union immigrating. So that does mean a variety of, let's say, different demographics, I suppose, to put it that way. Do you think that's going to have an issue? Do you think people are going to actually complain about that? I know large areas of Blackburn, Burnley, Bolton, for example, a lot of people already have a bit of an issue with certain demographic changes there, Dr. Rakiba.
Well, I think that when we're looking at our post-Brexit immigration system, what we're seeing is a decline in inward migration from predominantly white EU member states, and we're seeing rising levels of inward migration from English-speaking Commonwealth countries such as India, Pakistan and Nigeria. It really dispels the myth that we have a white nationalist government. That's for certain. I think that in terms of the discussion about what kinds of immigration we're seeing, we have to make the point that under the EU freedom of movement, predominantly white EU migrants were the beneficiaries of preferential treatment. And that was certainly a concern that was raised in Brexit voting areas such as Luton, Slough, Hillingdon, Osterley and Spring Grove, a ward in Hounslow, which voted 63.4% leave. It's a non-white majority ward. So I think what's really interesting is that we're seeing that Brexit voters are not necessarily a monolithic bloc when it comes to immigration. You'll have some Brexit voters who are deeply concerned by rising levels of migration from non-EU countries such as India, Pakistan, Nigeria and the Philippines, while you have more internationalists who may be relaxed about migration coming from these countries. So a number of myths are being dispelled here.
Alp, we'll throw it over back to you. Look, hey, I thought we were supposed to be having some kind of Australian-style points-based system. We're cherry-picking the best, the cream of the crop from the international community and bringing them over here to fill certain areas of our society that need filling. Is there any evidence that that's happening, Alp?
I don't think so, frankly. And you put your finger on it, actually, why it all went down well during the election. A points-based system based on the Australian one. In fact, it was nothing of the sort, but that's neither here nor there. Now, you say that more immigration is bound to come because we're no longer attracting them from the EU. Well, 2 points on that. Firstly, let's not forget that there were a lot more EU nationals here than we were given to believe. We were told there was about 3.7 million. When it came to the
yes, we were
EU
as good at counting them as Diane Abbott is
we
at counting,
actually had 6 million. And brightest and the best? I don't think so. It's the cheapest, I think, that we are after, not the brightest and the best in the least. That is my feeling.
OK, Dr. Rakib, I'll throw it back over to you. The Rwanda scheme appears to have had a bit of an impact, doesn't it? Apparently there were no channel crossings for 2 days. I'm not aware as yet, anyway, of yesterday's figures. I could be woefully out of date. We had a record day in the channel, but I think I've probably been made aware of that by now. But do you think that the Rwanda scheme is going to work as a deterrent?
Well, I think it's a possibility that it can work as a deterrent. My issue was that many people who opposed the UK-Rwanda migration partnership, they have very little to offer in terms of providing alternative arrangements, in terms of sorting out the problem of illegal channel crossings. I also feel that some of the commentary surrounding it was deeply disrespectful towards Rwanda, which is a rising African member of the Commonwealth. So I think that there's absolutely no harm in creating partnerships like this, because we had a very serious problem with the illegal channel crossings, and that was not a sustainable state of affairs.
Just on that, Rakib, sorry, just because we're a bit pressed for time, but I just want to pick you up on exactly what you've just said there. Priti Patel essentially said that some of the commentary was xenophobic, and it's a very skilled political argument. But I think there's also an element of truth in it, do you think? Do you think a lot of the so-called kind of woke liberati, as it were, are showing their true colours here? They've got a very disparaging view of Africa and, dare I say it, maybe Africans as well.
Absolutely. I think that that's certainly the case among liberal left Remainers, who they have a very EU-centric view of foreign policy. And this idea that the UK is able to exercise soft power in order to strengthen its relations with non-EU countries in Asia and Africa, it's not something that it's not something that they particularly like. And I think that what we've seen with the UK-Rwanda migration partnership, I think some liberal left pro-Remain commentators, they really have shown their true colours.
Absolutely. Look, both of you, thank you very much. Alp, I'm sorry I can't give you the final word, I'm afraid. I'm getting shouted at. But thank you very much for coming on. There you go. Well, you see, you got it in anyway. Alp, thank you very much. Thank you. Alp Mehmet there, the chair of Migration Watch. Send my best to the parliamentarians as well. Al and Dr. Rakib Hassan as well, a columnist at Spiked and social policy analyst as well. Right, OK, so, people, all this morning I've been talking about veterans and how we look after them, or should I say don't look after them, frankly. Loads of you have been getting in touch. I will be going into that inbox, don't worry, some fantastic views there. But joining me now is Trevor Colt, right? Now, Trevor served in the British Army for over 20 years, including in combat operations in Afghanistan, Iraq, where he was awarded the Military Cross for his actions. An absolute national hero is this guy. Now, Trevor, thank you so much for joining us. Look, the opening discourse on this was that I don't think we're treating our veterans well enough in this country. Maybe people say it's a lazy argument. I think it's the argument. We've got £5 million a day to give to asylum seeker hotels, and yet we've got thousands of veterans lining the streets, others living in tremendous mental discomfort, etc. How do you feel about the way we treat our veterans?
The public, well, to be fair, Patrick, the public treat the veterans very, very well.
Yes.
It's just the government seem to let down the veterans. The one thing, and I've had this out before with several MPs in the past, and I'm thinking known in the veterans community for this particular topic.
Yeah.
But the fact that we have so many charities exploiting veterans is shameful. Now, I will say this now, I haven't said it live ever before, Patrick, but I do have a petition out to have the Royal British Legion investigated for their finance and for their conduct, because I do not believe that a charity that has over £600 million tied up with your donations is helping the veterans community.
So you think so? So obviously, I was focusing on government. Now, obviously, the Royal British Legion will have to have a right to reply on this, and we'll make sure that we sort that out. So you can speak relatively freely, I suppose. But do you think that it's not just the government that's not doing enough? That maybe even not just the Royal British Legion, of course, who we are yet to hear from. So it's important to say that. But charities aren't doing enough either.
Well, there's so many charities now that it's hard to know for veterans where to actually go to get the help that they need. The Veterans Affairs Office have not done what it was set out to do. There is still thousands of veterans out there waiting on compensation, war pensions, ordinary pensions, that it's taken them years to get that help that they need. So I believe that right now the civil service needs a shake-up. I believe that those in the civil service have no experience in the veterans community and are coming straight from university with degrees and no common sense. And that's where the issue lies.
Well, in fact, the point is some of them aren't even turning up to work, are they, as Jacob Rees-Mogg has found out to his peril. But, Trevor, I want your views on this. We've got IRA terrorists wandering around the streets, OK? Letters of comfort they've got. They can blow up a pub, right? They can shoot people like you in the face, and yet they are immune from prosecution. But you end up with someone like Dennis Hutchins dragged before a court for the third time to die alone in a Northern Irish hospital. It doesn't make any sense, does it, these historic prosecutions?
Patrick, I fully agree with you. I think your supporters and people who love this news station agree with you as well. The problem we have is bureaucrats, not MPs, but those in the House of Lords that many people have been calling for many years to be abolished. It's these restrictions and these things are historic, set out by people now that sit in the House of Lords. They're the issue.
Right. So that's interesting. And just talk to me as well, Trevor. Let's just say, I mean, you obviously, thankfully, have done very well for yourself. I mean, you've done very well for this country, is what I mean, and you've managed to build a life for yourself post-service, as it were. But a lot of people struggle, of course, the horrors of war. I can only imagine. I think, hold my hands up here, I'd talk a good game, but I'd be absolutely terrible in a war zone. I'd be hiding behind you, right, basically. That's the way I'd have to play it. But when you come back from a war zone, maybe you leave the forces, right, and you don't necessarily have somewhere to live because you've presumably been spending a lot of time in a barracks, and you've got PTSD. How well are you looked after?
Well, first of all, Patrick, thank you for that. But I've tried to do well for myself. Let's remember that whenever I was still under recovery for PTSD, I received a letter from the Secretary of State telling me that I was going to evict my family from my married quarter, and I only had 6 weeks to vacate it and find somewhere to live. And that's how our government treat our veterans. So, and by the way, when I left there and transitioned, I did try to take my life. I've been going through charities. I've had PTSD resolution trying to rebuild my mind because I was broken. So I'm now in a good place, but I'll tell you now, it's a difficult path for anyone that's been in combat to get the help that they need.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And Trevor, I would like to say thank you very much for coming on the show. It's great to have you on the show. We'll have to have you back on. Thank you just for everything that you've done. I mean, it is... I think the word hero is bandied about far too often, but you were serving Queen and country for over 20 years, combat operations, Afghanistan, Iraq, and goodness knows where else as well. The Military Cross. Can I ask, I don't know if you mind talking about it or not, can I ask what specifically the Military Cross was for?
The Military Cross was for saving lives during a suicide vehicle ambush which involved 2 machine gunners who tried to engage our convoy. All I did was direct the convoys to the safe area and identify and eliminate the threat.
And eliminate the threat, I think, is, goodness me, the mind boggles. Trevor, look, I've got an infinite amount of love for you. Thank you very much. Trevor Cook there, Military Cross recipient as well, a veteran and indeed a hero. And I think it lays bare, doesn't it? You've got someone like that, right? Look at what he's done. So just in that one instance, just in that one instance, he's managed to save countless lives, nullify a threat that involves suicide bombers and indeed machine guns, right? For us, we send him out there, and then when he comes back and he suffers PTSD, we evict his family. Yeah, go figure. GBViews, gbnews.uk, get in touch. But moving on now. People in cities across China are having their freedoms curtailed, not for the first time, but this time it's COVID-related. Their movement is restricted, and in some cases they aren't even allowed to leave their homes, and they're dependent on the government to deliver them food. It's total state control, isn't it? No, this isn't February 2020. It's happening right now. Why, though? Despite the fact that we have safe and effective vaccines, is China... Well, they're not that effective, but is China still pursuing the aggressive and intrusive so-called zero-COVID approach? Is this something that we should be worried about? apparently some people want us to emulate it. Well, joining me now to give some expert views and opinion on this is virologist Dr. Chris Smith, who is managing editor of The Naked Scientist, who yet again has turned up with clothes on, which is an absolute scandal. But award-winning science podcasts and radio shows. Dr. Chris, look, thank you very, very much. This China issue, is there any point in pursuing a zero-COVID strategy?
Well, the reason China finds itself between a rock and a hard place is because they decided that this was going to be their strategy at the get-go, and that wasn't wrong. Because when we didn't know what we were dealing with 2 years ago, the most sensible thing to do is to actually keep it out until you've got the measure of it, and then you have a plan for opening things up. And what Australia and New Zealand have done is to use vaccines to very good effect to get very high levels of vaccination in their population with vaccines that work, so that although they're now seeing the consequences of that initial prolonged closure of the countries where they had very few cases, but now they're getting lots of cases, they're not getting consequences as the virus comes through. China, on the other hand, has used homegrown vaccines and hasn't had the kind of penetration of those vaccines through the population. If you contrast it with the UK, for example, up to 100% of some sectors of society here in the UK have been vaccinated with vaccines that are 90% effective. In China, one person I spoke to the other day, a commentator, was telling me, according to her, about 40% of the elderly in China have been vaccinated. So that's way below where it needs to be in order to protect the people who, let's face it, are the most vulnerable.
Yeah.
But they're also using homemade vaccines. These homegrown Chinese vaccines are not as effective, we now know, thanks to the data that's playing out, as the Western vaccines.
Yeah, just on that, Dr. Chris, I'm keen to get your views on this. A lot of people say, I've never heard of a vaccine that you need to take every 6 months. Doesn't stop you getting something or passing it on. Is it any good?
Well, there are two things to consider here. The Chinese vaccine, when run head-to-head with the, say, Pfizer, Moderna, the other RNA vaccines, the AstraZeneca vaccine, is not as good at producing the kind of protection that we're enjoying in most highly vaccinated countries, which is why China's got this problem at the moment, because A, they haven't vaccinated enough people, but the effect of those vaccines is more limited. But it's not strictly true to say that we don't have to return and circle back and update people's vaccine status with other illnesses other than COVID. Because remember, for decades, we've had actually what amounts to a very effective annual flu vaccine. And we update that flu vaccine every year, usually informed by data collected from around the world as to what strains of flu are circulating, so we can get the best guess at what is going to come here in our wintertime to protect people. So we do this. We have got a rationale for doing this. It's not unknown, but this is a brand new kid on the biological block, as it were. So at the moment, we're still very much in learning mode, and it is still a moving target. The virus hasn't settled down into the sorts of variants which are going to really be with us indefinitely or in a much less fluid way in the future yet. It's getting there. With Omicron, for example, we're seeing a virus that spreads very well but doesn't translate into severe consequences quite so often. So it's beginning to move down that path, but we're not quite there yet, which is why people are continuing to investigate, updating and revisiting vaccination.
Good stuff. Dr. Chris Smith, thank you so much. Great to have you back on the show again. And next time, OK, I never thought I'd say this to a bloke live on air, but if you're calling yourself The Naked Scientist, at least take your top off, mate. Anyway, award-winning science podcasts and radio shows as well. Hey, we'll see. There you go. Fantastic. All right, look, thank you very much, everyone who's been emailing in. Going to go to the view shortly. Quick one for Kate. We're definitely not looking after our veterans. Seem more concerned with people who come over the channel. GBViews, gbnews.uk. Keep all your thoughts coming in. You can tweet us as well at GBNews. Going to go to those after this short break. Stay tuned.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A dry and bright day for many of us. Cloud will build through the afternoon with showers for some, but no really significant rainfall in the forecast for today or the next few days as high pressure builds once again from the north, and we've got this north to northeasterly airflow, so it's turning a little chillier, and we'll notice that at night with a few overnight frosts, but also it's keeping things dry and bright for the vast majority. The best of the sunshine will be across central, southern and western parts of the UK, so for Northern Ireland, Wales, southern England. There'll be a few showers in the thicker cloud across northern and eastern England, and Scotland's going to be mostly dry, if rather cloudy. It will feel cool, particularly along that east coast, 9 to 12 Celsius with a cool easterly breeze, but 15 or 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland, where we do see some sunny spells. The cloud and any showers tend to fade away overnight, leaving largely clear skies. And under those clear skies, with that colder air in place, we'll see a touch of frost. In some of the sheltered spots across northern parts of the country, -2, -3 Celsius is possible. Could even see a -1 in southern areas. But in urban parts, I think we'll be frost-free. And it will be largely dry and bright once again as we start off Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, on the whole, is a sunnier day for Scotland and northern England, but a cloudier day further south. Nevertheless, 15 to 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, and 9 to 12 further north, but feeling more pleasant, I think, with the greater, sunnier skies across Scotland and northern England compared to today, and virtually everywhere will be dry. And really that's the theme that continues for the rest of the week. Thursday, Friday into Saturday as well. High pressure holds on. It won't be entirely sunny all the time. There will be areas of cloud floating around, but it will be largely dry and bright.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, everybody. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Patrick Christys, on your TV, radio and online. I'm with you all the way through until midday with an action-packed show for you. I've got loads on, actually. We're finally doing it, ladies and gentlemen. It's about time somebody did. Cyclists versus drivers. Who owns the road? That's what I want to know. That's going to kick off the cycling community. Very prolific on Twitter, so no doubt we'll be hearing all about that. Also, the psychology of being in a relationship with someone 25 years older than you. What's that all about? Macron. Make sure that you get in touch with your views, as usual, gbviews@gbnews.uk. But before we get into that, here's your headlines with Rosie.
Good morning, it's just gone 11 o'clock. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date today on GB News. Russia is accusing NATO of waging a proxy war with Moscow by arming Ukraine. The country's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, says weapons sent to the capital, Kyiv, by the West are legitimate targets. Russia says its air forces hit 87 military targets in Ukraine overnight, killing around 500 servicemen. Armed Forces Minister in the UK, James Heapy, says individual countries are supplying military aid, not NATO.
NATO is reinforcing the alliance's eastern flank as a defensive measure to reassure our Eastern European allies. NATO is not the donor community. Many of the people in the donor community are NATO countries, but similarly, Australians, the Kiwis and others are part of it as well.
Well, meanwhile, the UN Secretary-General is meeting the Russian president in Moscow before then travelling to Ukraine to meet President Zelensky. Antonio Guterres stopped in Ankara en route for talks with the Turkish president, who hosted the last round of peace talks a month ago. Ukraine has asked the UN to act as initiator and guarantor of any agreement to evacuate civilians from a steel plant in Mariupol. The Labour Party is again calling for an emergency budget to tackle the cost of living crisis, reiterating the need for a windfall tax on oil and gas companies. The Prime Minister is expected to urge his cabinet this morning to come up with innovative ideas to ease the financial pressure on households without relying on new government spending. Well, the consumer champion, Helen Juney, says the situation for many people is heartbreaking.
A few months ago, it was whether people could heat or eat. Well, now they can do neither. You know, they can't heat up the food. Food banks are sort of in desperate need because they're not getting the donations because people can't afford to donate, and then people need it more.
Heathrow losses as a result of the pandemic have now topped £4 billion. The airport says demand for travel is still volatile and they're forecasting another loss this year. It expects passenger numbers will increase, but they're still only around 65% of pre-COVID levels. Rising fuel costs, reduced disposable incomes for households, the war in Ukraine and the ongoing pandemic are all being blamed. The Speaker of the House of Commons is going to meet with the editor of the Mail on Sunday to discuss an article about the Deputy Labour leader published, which has widely been condemned as sexist. An anonymous Conservative MP was quoted in the paper saying that Angela Rayner used her legs to distract Boris Johnson during Prime Minister's questions. Well, the Speaker described that as misogynistic and offensive. The number of children in the UK with hepatitis has risen to 114, according to the World Health Organization. 10 have needed a liver transplant. The UK Health Security Agency say most of the cases of liver inflammation are in under fives. Experts are still trying to understand the cause of the spike in hepatitis. Twitter's founder, Jack Dorsey, is welcoming the £34 billion takeover of the company by the world's richest man. He says Elon Musk's bid is the only solution he trusts. The Tesla chief executive is buying the company for £42.20 a share. Twitter originally rejected the offer, but the board reconsidered when Mr. Musk demonstrated he'd secured the finances for the deal. In the US now, body cam footage has been released showing emergency workers on the set of the film Rust after the cinematographer Helena Hutchins was fatally shot. The Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office is still investigating the shooting last October by the actor Alec Baldwin. He's seen in the footage waiting outside the church where the incident happened. Video's also been released of Baldwin drawing the gun during a rehearsal. He told police it should never have been loaded or empty, should have been empty with blanks.
It should have been a cold gun with no rounds inside or dummy rounds, cosmetic rounds, no flash. I take the gun out slowly, I cock the pistol, bang, it goes up, she hits the ground, she goes down. He goes down, screaming. He's like, Jesus Christ, and I'm going. And I thought that maybe sometimes the wadding can come out if you're close and you get a burn.
The film's director, Joel Souza, was also shot but survived. He's seen in body cam footage describing what happened.
Sorry, I'm trying.
It's okay,
take a very loud bang, and it felt like somebody kicked me in the shoulder, and then I was down on my and then I looked over and see the cinematographer, Helena Hutchins, with blood coming out of her back.
Holding a what? I'm sorry?
With blood coming out of her back.
Okay.
She was between me and I think where the gun went off, and I think it went through her and into me.
The extra bank holiday this year in honour of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee on the 3rd of June could become a permanent fixture. The Chancellor is going to consider the proposals made by campaigners to make the date an annual day off. The idea has wide support from the Confederation of British Industry and also the Archbishop of Canterbury. Well, the day this year is designed to be a thank holiday, recognising the Queen's service. You're up to date. I'll bring you more as it happens. Now let's head back to Patrick for To The Point.
Good morning, everybody. Where did that first hour go, hey? It's just me today, Patrick Christie's, on your TV, radio and online, live on GB News. I've got a great show lined up for you for the last bit of the programme. So, right, OK, here's what's on the menu. Is our justice system broken? That's the question I'm asking after seeing shameful stats regarding knife crime. We're at a decade's low when it comes to arrests being made. What more can be done to make Britain safer and the courts move faster? We're letting down, get this, people, not just victims of sexual crimes, but victims of violent crimes as well. I'll be speaking to a stabbing victim and someone who is also campaigning for quicker justice for victims of sexual assault. So we're doing the absolute lot of it there, let me tell you now. Speaking of justice, a cabbie and a cyclist will be attempting to convince me that they own the roads as the debate rages on over who really gets right of way, OK? We've gone cyclist, we've gone cabbie, it's going to kick off. Right, and finally, for today's controversy, if that wasn't enough, I am asking whether or not big age gaps in marriage are a bit weird. I've already had some fella on who says that he's in a 12-year age gap with his wife and they've never noticed the age difference. Fantastic stuff. We're going to be hearing from a psychologist on what it's really like in terms of an age gap in a relationship. Of course, it's got nothing to do with Emmanuel Macron. But French President Emmanuel Macron is 44. He's just celebrated his presidential win with his wife, who's 69, and his stepdaughter, who's 45. Yes, that's right, a love psychologist will explain whether or not this is normal, and perhaps a good thing later on. I've got all of that coming up and much, much more across the programme. Get in touch with me, as loads of you have, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Let's do it, people. Right, so before we get stuck into all of that, a big issue at the top of this particular hour. Let's talk about the Ukraine's knife crime problem. We're going to move on to a wider package, really, as well, about just the state of our justice system. Like I said in that intro there, we're not just letting down victims of violent crime, but of sexual crime as well. We're going to start with the violent crime at the top. And I say the UK's knife problem as well, of course. It's not just London's problem, because it is a country-wide knife crime problem. For example, Cleveland in Yorkshire was the area with the highest level of knife crime in 2021. 72 offences for every 100,000 people. It's nuts, isn't it? London came fourth in the same table. Manchester, near my neck of the woods, that has seen serious youth violence offences rise 200% in just 2 years. Lincolnshire, 1/3 of repeat knife offenders have avoided jail. That gets at me, by the way. We're going to get stuck into that. Repeat knife offenders avoiding jail. Go figure. And let's not forget Scotland, of course, how could we? Whose crime rate is soaring, while its police numbers also fall to its lowest level since 2009. Now, as you can see, knife crime, youth violence, a lack of police presence. It's not just a London problem. It's Britain's problem. It's your problem in your area. Now, activist groups across the country are taking matters into their own hands, taking knives off youths themselves, distributing bleed control kits, teaching life-saving first aid and working with police to try and tackle the knife crime epidemic. Now, my next guest was a victim of violent knife crime. He knows exactly what he's talking about when it comes to this issue, so he's going to be well worth a listen for his views. It's Frank Lucas, a youth volunteer who helps people escape knife crime. Look, Frank, thank you so much for coming on the show. Now, if you don't mind, can we just start with, if you're OK to talk about it, your own experiences with knife crime. I understand you were the victim of knife crime.
1, 2, 3, 4 times.
Stabbed 4 times?
4 different. Slashed once and then the other time stabbed, yeah.
On 4 separate occasions?
Yeah.
Goodness me. I mean, do you feel lucky to be alive?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. I've seen one of my closest friends died in front of my eyes and he got stabbed once, so...
Goodness
yeah.
Me. And, look, do you mind me asking, were you carrying a knife as well? You don't have to say, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, mate. I used to be an idiot. Like, I used to be involved in all of that. I used to carry a knife. I've been arrested for it. I've been to jail for it. I've got the T-shirt. Like,
yeah.
I've been there. I've got the battle wounds as well. Like, it's not worth it.
No, well, look, talk to me about how you got into it first, because was it just the area, the people you were hanging around with? What was it?
No, it was the things that I was doing and the things I was getting involved in. You know, when you start getting involved in drug dealing and then people start trying to rob you and then there's 3 people against you and then you need something to protect you and you think, if I pull this out, it's going to scare them. But it don't always work like that. They don't get scared all the time and sometimes you have to use it and it's not worth it.
Yeah, so just talk to me, in your opinion now, about the way that the police are combating knife crime or trying to. Do you think we are...
Me personally...
Go on, you take it away.
The way the police approach it, the police are just ridiculous. They just... Anybody that's ever been done for it or even looks like... Say me now, stereotype with this straight stop search, this, excuses, but... They wouldn't actually go out the way like the Python Club exactly. They're going out the way trying to help people and they're trying to make them progress in life instead of taking out a knife. You know what? Think about your life. Do what you're doing. Go to this club. You've got some free activities to do. You've got some friends to meet. Like, so what's the point in going and doing all this badness? Like, the police need to start being more, what's the word? Friendly. They're being way too aggressive because the way the kids look up to them is like... They're scared of them in a way because they know they're going to take them away. They know they're going to go to jail. So they're scared of them. But if they approached them on a friendly level and they was trying to actually work with them instead of, you know what, you're going straight to jail, you're getting arrested, instead of trying to work with them.
Is it a tricky one, that, Frank? Look, I'm speaking from a place of, I hate to use this word, but I sound like the BBC, immense privilege. Because I've not hung around in gangs, you know what I mean? I've not had real exposure to this at all. I mean, I'll be real
with you, mate. It's easier said than done. It is a lot easier said than done. It was hard for me to stop everything I was doing, so yeah.
No, look, absolutely, tremendous credit to you. But when it comes to the police, we get a lot of viewers on this show who go, you know, right, if you're caught with a knife, lock them up, or they go, stop and search, need more stop and search. And
No, not necessarily, because some of the people that are carrying the knives could be the most nicest person you'd ever meet, could have the goldest heart you'd ever meet, but the only reason they're carrying that knife is because that one mistake that they made keeps coming up behind them and biting them straight on the backside, and so-and-so wants them, so-and-so, and this person, and because they're fearing for their life, that's the only reason why.
Right then, mate. What's the
situation?
What's the solution? Because we are. So when you were stabbed, one of the four times that you were stabbed, by the way, did that person or those people get prosecuted? Did you feel like you had justice?
The first 3 times, none of them ever got arrested. That all got resolved in house, if that makes sense.
Wow.
But then this one, I was actually in jail when this happened. Obviously, we've ended up going to an adjudication. He thought I was somebody else, but I wasn't. I was in the middle of nowhere, blah, blah, blah. He apologised. But it was straight across my shoulder. Could have been my neck. Could have been dead. And, yeah.
Yeah. And Frank, just tell me what you tell people. So tremendous credit for you for speaking so openly and honestly and for turning your life around. You said it can't have been easy, and I believe you. But you're a youth volunteer now. So what do you tell kids, in your area now that are looking to escape?
I tell them the truth. What I did, how they think it's all fun and games and think all this fast money, this lifestyle, all your mates getting you gassed up and blowing your head up. It ain't all that, because look where it gets you. I'll happily show them the war wounds. I'll happily show them all the paperwork, show them everything. Like, look, this is where it gets you. It gets you this long in jail. It gets you away from your family. You have nothing. You have nobody confined in a cell. And what? So do you want to do this, or do you want to do something like what I'm doing right now? And they're like, you know what? And then they think about it and they're like, where would I actually want to be? Do I actually want to be in jail, or do I want to be doing what you're doing?
Can I ask you a really weird question, Frank?
Go on.
Is there any chance that I could see your scars just to show our viewers what, the reality of it? Is that all right? And if you're listening, if you're listening already, that's the scars. Right, what?
Can you see that?
I think the light is a bit bad, but yeah, go on. Okay, we can't really. It's not quite, but yeah, we've got. Well, yeah, we can see it now. We can see it now. Yeah, goodness gracious me. Yes, absolutely. And that's presumably just one of them, isn't it? Really? I mean, you've got got the wall.
Then I've got another one in my back. Then another one just like above my groin, and then I've got 2 in my hand from where I nearly got stabbed in my face. So.
Goodness me. I mean, it doesn't bear thinking about, really. But look,
the only thing to do is either laugh or cry about it.
Well, yeah, or do what you've done, which is turn your life around and try and make sure that other people don't go down that path. And I think you deserve tremendous, tremendous, tremendous credit for that, Frank. So well done, you. And thank you very much for coming on the show. And good luck as well. And just to remind, just if anyone's watching this now, Frank, just quickly, sorry, what area are you in? How can people reach out to you?
I'm in Nottingham, and if anybody is in Nottingham, I'd highly recommend them to go check out the Python Club, TPC. Go give them a look. And all I'm saying, they'll help you change your life around like they helped me change my life around. So
good lad, Frank.
Yeah.
Good lad, mate. Well done. Thank you very much for coming on, Frank. We'll have to talk again soon. Yeah, Frank Lucas, youth volunteer helping people escape knife crime. I liked that. I thought he was a very genuine guy, wasn't he? How do you feel about this situation? You know, we talk a lot about violent crime, don't we, here on this show, and indeed the news agenda is absolutely full of it, but you've got a lad there who's got the war wounds to prove it, hasn't he? And he's actually turned his life around. He's been to prison, he's been involved with gangs, etc, 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 but now he's trying to help others. GBviews at gbnews.uk. I liked Frank. I thought he was a good guy. Anyway, so we've talked about knife crime now, but what if any crime has occurred, and seeking justice as well is a very, very difficult thing. But it's not just violent crime, right? It's not just knife crime, OK? That grabs a lot of the headlines. But if you're the victim of a serious sexual offence, get this, you'll find that you have to wait the longest amount of time on record to go through the Crown Courts in England and Wales. So you can be waiting years, by the way, right? So just imagine this situation, OK? Just imagine this situation. You have been the victim of a serious sexual offence, like a rape or something like that. Waiting 2 years for a court case, which, by the way, actually has a relatively low conviction rate anyway. Ellie Reeves is Labour's Shadow Justice Minister, and I'm very glad to say joins me now. Thank you very, very much, Ellie. Great to have you on the show. Just ground it for our viewers and our listeners. What's the scale of the problem here when it comes to serious sexual offences and getting justice?
It's a huge problem, and victims are telling us that it's taking 3 years or more from when they report a rape at the police station right through to trial. And the reality is that only 1.3% of rapes are actually being prosecuted at all. So just over 1 in 100 rapes that are reported to the police are actually ending up in the court system to start off with. So victims are being let down on every front. And victims say to us, look, we feel as though the system is working against us and not for us. We're waiting all of this time. A lot of the time, cases aren't even getting anywhere near a court. They're not even being prosecuted. It's traumatic, and victims are not being put first.
No, exactly. And you mentioned that. I mean, goodness me, it's difficult to know where to start with this particular issue, isn't it? But the lack of charges, sometimes, anyway. Then you've got the waiting game. And then I know as well from back in the days, a local reporter used to go to Crown Court, once a week or whatever. And there was very often, unfortunately, rape cases. And I could sit through days of these trials. And the sad fact, a lot of the time, the sad fact with the rape cases, as a member of the jury, unless you were there, if there's no compelling DNA evidence, unless you were actually physically there on the scene, it's very difficult. It can be very difficult to prosecute. So you end up in a situation now, don't we, where people are waiting ages just to go to court. They're lucky if they get to court. They're waiting ages to go to court. And when they get to court, they still might not get justice.
That's right, but there are things that could be done to make it much easier for victims. So, you talked about the fact people are waiting ages to get to court, and often it being one person's words against another. Well, if you've waited years, the reality is that the evidence that you give, if you've waited, years to get to court, if you've given it sort of several years previously. So one of the things that we've been saying is let rape victims have their evidence pre-recorded at a really urgent, best evidence. It's called Section 28. There's equipment in all of the Crown Courts across the country, so this could be rolled out. The government keep saying they're going to do it, but years on from knowing there is a massive problem with rape prosecutions, it still hasn't happened. We don't know why we're still waiting for it. There's no urgency by the government to fix this problem.
Yeah, all right. Now, look, it's a very, very sensitive issue, this. I don't want to politicise it too much, but you are Labour's Shadow Justice Minister, and, rightly or wrongly, one of the criticisms lobbied at the Labour Party at the minute is we don't know about policies, right? So how would you fix this then?
We have put forward a survivors support package for victims of rape and serious sexual violence. One of the first things we would do is roll out the ability for all victims of rape to be able to pre-record their evidence. We'd also give victims a legal advocate, so they've got someone on their side every step of the way, from when they're to trial, driving up standards in the criminal justice system. We're also calling on the government to urgently carry out a review into the implementation of specialist rape courts, meaning that rape cases could be heard much quicker, ending the trauma of waiting years and years before getting to court, enabling victims to be able to access counselling and to be able to move on with their lives. And also having some accountability, having a minister in government that is responsible for rape and serious sexual violence, driving up these standards, because we know that at the moment victims are being let down and we need that to change urgently.
Ellie, thank you very, very much. And I think, you know what, the amount of times, credit where credit's due, the amount of times I've had a Labour MP on here who has not hit me with a bullet point list of what it is they actually want to do. And you've just done that. So fair play. Ellie Reeves there, thank you very much. Labour's Shadow Justice Minister. And potentially, hey, dare to dream, people. Labour's first female leader. Anyway, after the break, who owns our roads? We'll be speaking to London Cabbie, that's right, and a cycling campaign group. What could go wrong? Hey, what could go wrong? Hopefully they've not literally bumped into each other in the past. But I want to know, right? Are you sick and tired of the lycra-clad mafia, just Lance Armstrong wannabes, aren't they? Or do you actually feel like cab drivers on the roads have a very disdainful view towards cyclists? Who owns the roads? That's what I want to know. We're going driver versus cyclist. It's a battle royale. It's head-to-head, and it's next.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christys, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Good morning, it's 11:26. It's To The Point with me, Patrick Christie's, live on your TV, online and radio this morning. And look, we're going to have to rattle through it. No time to breathe here, people. A Peugeot driver in South Yorkshire was slapped with a £417 fine and 5 points for almost hitting a cyclist. But all is not as it seems, because it was basically the cyclist's fault. He didn't actually hit anyone, but the police said that he was driving too closely to a group of cyclists at excessive speed, which constituted careless driving. But a video of the incident was posted online by Sheffield North West Police. Some people said that the driver did nothing wrong. Take a look and see what you think.
Did anybody get his number plate?
Did anybody get his number? It just got to me thinking, when it comes to Britain's roads, who rules them and why? Is it the cyclist? Is it the motorist? It's the question that you've always wanted answers, people. So joining me now is Chairman of the London Cab Drivers Club, Grant Davis, and the appropriately named Stop Killing Cyclists spokesperson, Casper Hughes. So there we go. I believe we have them there. Or not, maybe. Apparently, well, classic. We're just going to go to we're giving the cyclist right of way, OK? So we're going to go to Stop Killing Cyclists spokesperson, Casper Hughes. Now, look, Casper, I hope you don't mind. Obviously, I was being a bit facetious before, kind of taking the mickey a bit, really. But, you know, look, a cyclist a menace?
No, they're not at all menaces, you know, and the first thing I would say is whenever you use the term cyclist, you're including kids cycling to school. You know, nobody cycling is certainly kids are not menaces. There are occasions when people cycling are cause other road users issues, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, somebody is killed or maimed by a driver every 20 minutes. Thousands of people are killed every year by driver, and cyclists kill between 0 and 3 people a year. You know, they're not a menace.
No, I'm sure they're not. Although when you cycle 2 or 3 abreast, I've got to be honest with you, Casper, it does really wind me up. But on a serious note, though, it is a dangerous business, cycling, isn't it, really? And do you feel as though drivers don't give you enough respect?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is a very dangerous business, and that's why people don't really cycle as much in the UK as they do in other countries on the continent. You know, where it is safe, people do cycle. You know, where it is safe, like I was just saying about kids. You know, where it is safe, primary school kids can cycle to school safely, and that's sadly missing in the larger cities in the UK. Obviously, there are some areas of London where that is changing quite quickly.
Yes, and I do believe that we are joined now by the chairman of the London Cab Drivers Club, Grant Davis. Grant, thank you very much. Some people say, you know what, cabbies, when they see a cyclist, they see a target. Is that true?
No, it's certainly not true. I cycle myself with my sons. The problem is, as you know, recently, they've even changed the highway code to enable cyclists to sort of take over the road, like you just touched on. I've been driving my taxi in London. I get 2 cyclists abreast, talking, middle of the road, doing 5-10 mile an hour. And years ago, you might have been able to get away with giving them a little beep and saying, "Oh, can you move over, please?" But hey, you can't do it, because they'll report you. They'll take a picture, send it to the police. And as you know, they'll be knocking on my door the next week wanting to give me a £60 fine. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, all right, Casper, I'll let you respond to that. I mean, look, some people would say, look, if I went swimming in the sea and I got eaten by a shark, I'm in the shark's home. If you go cycling on a road, you're in the driver's home. Casper.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, when you go swimming in a swimming pool where there are no sharks, which is exactly why we need protected cycling infrastructure on the roads, isn't it? To keep people who are cycling away from the sharks, which are the drivers.
Yeah, no, absolutely fair enough. But you guys have all got, I suppose both of you actually probably have rolling camera footage, I suppose. You need it these days, don't you? But just in terms of one of the main reasons, Cass, why people cycle, I imagine, is maybe fitness, and potentially they've got, you know, some high-minded view about that they're doing their bit for the climate as well, potentially. But Grant, just talk to me about this. Do you think that the cycle lanes, especially in London, it can funnel the traffic in? Does it actually cause more pollution, do you think, or more congestion?
Oh, massively, massively. I mean, it started with Boris and it's continued with Sadiq. They've spent nearly £1 billion on cycle lanes. And last year, Adam Bolton in the Times said in London there is a population of 8 million and only 118 people are registered as cyclists. So can someone tell me how this minority has had almost £1 billion of public funds spent on it, on these cycle lanes that cause gridlock? It's just pandemonium on the streets of London.
I suppose, just look, Casper, just respond to that, I suppose. There's a lot to get stuck into there. But, you know, there is an argument to suggest that cycle lanes in central London are actually leading to congestion.
No, that's just not true. Unfortunately, that's not backed up by any data at all. And, you know, and the other thing I'd point out here is nobody's registered as a cyclist. Half the population cycle regularly, and people would do so far more frequently if it was safe. And that's exactly what we're seeing. If you take the east-west cycle lane, for example, you know, which has millions of people using it every single day. You know, you talk about Bank Junction, for example, which 450,000 people use as pedestrians every day. Why should drivers be able to drive through there when it's making it dangerous?
No way does over 400,000 people use that pedestrianised. No way. I've driven a cab in London 30-odd years and Bank Junction was busy, but there is never the amount of figures you've just suggested. And that is the problem, Caspar. Cyclist groups, it's like they just have the biggest voice and all of a sudden they get everything that they want. I mean, cycling, net zero, it's like a new religion. And you dare go against it, you're just condemned from the rooftops. It's becoming crazy. There's never an intelligent conversation to be had. It's either too extreme on one or the other. There needs to be a proper conversation.
All right, come back, Casper. He thinks you're a two-wheeled extremist.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the climate point of view, then transport is the largest emitting sector in the UK, and driving is, privately owned vehicles and are the largest sector of that. Apart from, of course, if you look in central London, then most of the emissions are coming from cabbies and black cab drivers. Who represent 20% of the traffic. This is all database stuff. You know, I've worked with the City of London.
Oh, no, he's gone. OK, all right, well, sorry, this actually looks awful. I know the cycling community are going to be getting on at me on Twitter now. We've cancelled the cyclist and we've just left him with a grinning cabbie. But I promise you that wasn't a deliberate thing. Look, thank you both of you. Very good debate. That I enjoyed it. And it's nice to have a laugh while we do it as well. Chairman of the London Cab Drivers Club, Grant Davis, and Stop Killing Cyclists spokesperson, Casper Hughes. Look, on a serious note, of course, road safety is important. Probably at this point, I should disclose, I don't know how to ride a bike. Yep, OK. So after the break, are age gaps in marriages a good thing? Love coach and psychosexual therapist Kate McKenzie will help me find out after these headlines. Don't worry, it's got nothing to do with Emmanuel Macron.
Good morning, it's 11:35. I'm Rosie Wright, keeping you up to date. Russia's foreign minister is accusing NATO of waging a proxy war in Ukraine. Sergei Lavrov says weapons sent to Kyiv by the West are legitimate targets. But the UK's Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, says individual countries are supplying military aid, not NATO. Well, those comments come as Germany agrees to send anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine. The Prime Minister is urging his cabinet to come up with innovative ideas to ease financial pressures on households. The government's renewing its push to promote the existing package of support instead of relying on new spending. Private companies are being told they too must play their part. The Speaker of the House of Commons is meeting the editor of the Mail on Sunday over an article published about the Deputy Labour leader, which has widely been condemned as sexist. An anonymous Conservative MP was quoted in the paper as saying that Angela Rayner used her legs to distract Boris Johnson during Prime Minister's questions. Sir Lindsay Hoyle has described it as misogynistic and offensive. The number of children in the UK with hepatitis has now risen to 114, according to the World Health Organization. 10 have needed a liver transplant. The UK Health Security Agency says most of the cases of liver inflammation have affected under 5s. Experts are still trying to understand the cause of the spike in hepatitis. Heathrow losses as a result of the pandemic have now topped £4 billion. The airport says demand for travel is still volatile and it's forecasting another loss this year. They're expecting passenger numbers will continue to grow, but they'll still be only around 65% of pre-COVID levels. You're now up to date on GB News. We're on your TV, online and DAB+ radio. Don't go anywhere. Patrick will be back shortly.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A dry and bright day for many of us. Cloud will build through the afternoon with showers for some, but no really significant rainfall in the forecast for today or the next few days as high pressure builds once again from the north, and we've got this north to northeasterly airflow, so it's turning a little chillier, and we'll notice that at night with a few overnight frosts, but also it's keeping things dry and bright for the vast majority. The best of the sunshine will be across central, southern and western parts of the UK, so for Northern Ireland, Wales, southern England. There'll be a few showers in the thicker cloud across northern and eastern England, and Scotland's going to be mostly dry, if rather cloudy. It will feel cool, particularly along that east coast, 9 to 12 Celsius with a cool easterly breeze, but 15 or 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland, where we do see some sunny spells. The cloud and any showers tend to fade away overnight, leaving largely clear skies, and under those clear skies, with that colder air in place, we'll see a touch of frost. In some of the sheltered spots across northern parts of the country, -2, -3 Celsius is possible. Could even see a -1 in southern areas. But in urban parts, I think, will be frost-free. And it will be largely dry and bright once again as we start off Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, on the whole, is a sunnier day for Scotland and northern England, but a cloudier day further south. Nevertheless, 15 to 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, and 9 to 12 further north, but feeling more pleasant, I think, with the greater, sunnier skies across Scotland and northern England compared to today, and virtually everywhere will be dry. And really that's the theme that continues for the rest of the week. Thursday, Friday into Saturday as well. High pressure holds on. It won't be entirely sunny all the time. There will be areas of cloud floating around, but it will be largely dry and bright.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christys.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning all, it is 11:41. This is To The Point with me, Patrick Christys. Don't worry, Mercy's not gone missing. She's having a well-earned break. She will be back, I think, anyway, tomorrow. We're live on your TV, online and radio this morning. Now, the race is on to crown the UK's City of Culture 2025. Where do you think it should be? Is your city a very cultured city? Would you like to be crowned the City of Culture? Hey, look, I'll say what I've always said. If Hull can do it, so can you. The title, currently held by the City of Coventry, is granted every 4 years by the Department for Media, Culture and Sport. So Southampton has now made the shortlist. I like Southampton, actually. Has made the shortlist of just 4 cities that may take the prize. And our South East of England reporter, Ellie Costello, has been to the Old Town part of the city. Let's check it out.
Yes, we are in the old part of the city. Check this out behind us. This is the Bargate area. This has been here since the 12th century. This was the opening of the city walls, if you will. And many people watching at home will be familiar with Southampton. Perhaps you've got on a cruise liner from the port, or perhaps you've made your way to the Isle of Wight from Southampton. It's a very popular city, but we're here this morning because it is in that final shortlist for the UK's City of Culture 2025. Think of it a little bit like the Olympics. There's a host city every 4 years. At the moment, Coventry is holding it. They're holding it until May, and Southampton is hoping to be the next city. So let me tell you who's on this shortlist. It's the city of Bradford, County Durham, for the first time actually this time. Regions can also be nominated. Southampton, where we are now, of course, and Wrexham County Borough. So we're joined now by Professor Fraser Sturt from the University of Southampton, and he's also part of the bid team. So, Fraser, why Southampton? What has Southampton got that these other areas don't have, do you think?
Well, I think it's as you said, lots of people know Southampton and have been to it or through it, but it is an amazing city that has an incredibly diverse and rich population that really has a culture that pops, but people don't know about it and people haven't seen it. So we've got amazing artists, theatres, musicians, but incredible science and technology and innovation as well. And it's that ability to cast a spotlight on that and people to go, look what is happening in our country, look how the city can come together. But also we really need it. There's a lot of need in Southampton too.
Yes, because lots of cities and regions want this City of Culture, don't they? Because it brings tourism to the area, it brings investment, but it's not just about that, is it?
No, it's really about bringing a city together so it can address both its opportunities and celebrate them, but also its needs. So we do have significant deprivation and challenges within the city, and this is an opportunity where the city has come together. This is of the city, and they've really made it, and we've found a pathway through which we can address those needs while having an amazing time and improving the city too.
So you say it's a little bit about the levelling up agenda as well, and just bringing investment to the community here as well. And tell us a little bit about the process. How does it work in the next few weeks? Because it is a very important time for the bid team, isn't it?
It is. This is a lot of work, and it's been a long process for all of the cities. We're all working really hard. So we've been through to a shortlisting process, and now we're going to be visited by a series of judges who are going to come and see the spaces, look at what we're going to do, how are we actually going to deliver, and then there'll be a series of interviews and follows up on the applications as well. So this is incredibly rigorous. This is not just a toss a coin and who will it be, but how are we actually going to deliver?
Very, very exciting time, Fraser. Well, thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel, and best of luck to you in the next few weeks. Well, Eamon and Isabel, as you just heard, there's going to be judges visiting this beautiful city in the next few weeks, and it's going to be very close now between those final 4 cities and regions to find out who's going to be the UK City of Culture 2025.
Wow, fantastic stuff, Ellie. That's great. I mean, hey, Southampton, Bradford, I've got to say, I think Blackpool's been robbed. But anyway, moving on. Emmanuel Macron won the French presidential election on Sunday and naturally celebrated the victory with his wife and his stepchildren. So the 44-year-old president has 3 stepchildren through his marriage to 69-year-old Brigitte. Now, Sebastian, who's 47, Lawrence, who's 45, and Tiffany, who is the only one younger than Macron at 38. Now, famously, OK, the president first locked eyes with his future wife at just 15 years old when he was a student at the school where the then 39-year-old Brigitte was teaching. They had been married since 2007, happily, so it seems. Now, I want to know, look, it got me thinking, OK? It got me thinking, are age gaps in a relationship workable, significant ones? We always hear about it, don't we? When a bloke has got an age gap with a woman, right, so she's 20 years younger than him or whatever, it's always like, oh, well done, mate. But then it seems really unusual, doesn't it, when the woman is the older one? And already, actually, quite a lot of you, I'll go to his email shortly, have been getting in touch to say that you've got a big age gap in your marriage and you're all very happy by the sounds of things. But Kate McKenzie joins me now, a psychosexual therapist and love coach. Thank you very much, Kate. So, massive age gaps in a marriage. Workable?
Absolutely. All depends on the couple. One of the happiest couples I know, there's 22 years. He's 22 years older than her. Another very happy couple, she was 20 years older. Although in that time, they got together about 40 years ago, and people were very shocked. I think maybe people are getting more used to this.
Okay, now, there's psychologically a bit of a, hey, maybe this is misogyny. I'm going all woke here, okay? But, you know, when a bloke has a younger bride, Boris and Carrie, 24 years younger. We've got George and Amal Clooney, 16 years younger. And, of course, we can all agree the marriage made in heaven, Depp and her, 23 years younger. Now, when it's a bloke with a younger bride, everyone's like, oh, you know, well played, mate. But when it's a woman, people find it unusual. Why do we think like that?
Well, we're coming out of a big time when mainly men were in charge, and now there's a shift, isn't there? And we're getting used to women having more power, women being able to have agency, buy homes, do jobs. If you look at the 70s, it was a very, very, very different time, and we're now in a different time where men are revealing that they have feelings, which they always had, but there was a story that men didn't have feelings, and women are becoming more empowered, and there's lots of shifts.
There are, absolutely. And it's not as simple, is it, Kate, to say, as I think there's a lazy stereotype, isn't there, which is that, you know, if you're a younger man with a much older woman, maybe you've got mummy issues or something like that. But it's not as simple as that, is it, Kate?
It's the quality of the connection. I mean, it makes sense that some people... there's a lovely sex therapist called Dr. Debbie Schnarch who said, you know, great sex comes with cellulite. Because it's the idea that it can be wonderful to be intimately involved with someone who knows themselves. It can be very, very sexy, very, very erotic, and very alluring. So you can imagine that there's lots of people who want to be with someone that is a real mate, is a real friend, is a real compatriot, and age doesn't necessarily matter, although equally sometimes when people are older, as you know, they're more ready for relating, or they've learnt so much, so they bring so much to the table.
No, absolutely. It's about the experience, isn't it, actually? And what's, frankly, just what someone can offer you. And as they say, Kate, at the end of the day, love is blind, isn't it?
I mean, initially, we have something, the first 6 months to 2 years of any relationship, people go through something called often limerence, which is that it necessarily, that in love place where you just think they're the best thing since sliced bread, and then can you go beyond that? Can you make a relationship from that? So yeah, I mean, we can see that people make mistakes, people change their mind, people do relationships that don't work, but age gap it all depends on the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, Amanda's just got in touch in Wiltshire. Thank you very much. Me and my husband have a 10-year age gap. He's 57, I'm 47, and I've never been so happy. There you go. I'm sure we've been married 10 years next year. Good stuff. So you've been married 9 years. Amanda, great stuff. So, Kate, you know, is there a potential issue, not referring to Amanda, of course, I would never dare to. Is there a potential issue sometimes if, look, eventually age catches up with all of us, and my attitude is to try and die young and leave a beautiful corpse, but only halfway there. But look, is it potential that you could find yourself, you know, one partner slowing down more than the other, for example, and that's when maybe issues could happen?
The thing about life is there's no guarantee on anything. And if you fall in love, there's a risk of loss. That's part of the deal of falling in love. And of course, you know, if you fall in love with someone older, they might die sooner. They might not. I've got some cousins, and he was much older than her, so he thought he was going to die sooner, and he's still going. She died some time ago, and we can't tell which way it's going to work out.
Know.
Like, life is mysterious.
But
would you miss out on falling in love? Would you miss out?
No,
that's the thing.
It. And that's an interesting point, that, isn't it, Kate? For all the heartbreak that unfortunately can happen, you know, would you go through that just for that falling in love process? Is the falling in love worth the heartbreak? I know there's no science to it, but I want to know what your views are.
the thing about life is that, great risk brings great love. And if we do love deeply, that also can bring heartbreak. And it's just like, but isn't that part of living?
It is. It is, and it's a natural. These are all natural emotions, aren't they? And we can't over sanitise that. Actually, Kate, I could talk to you all day, and I would like to say I think it's the first time I've ever had you on this show. It won't be the last. Let me tell you that, Kate McKenzie. Thank you very much, a psychosexual therapist and love coach. Just a quick one. Jean's been on. Morning, Jean. I'm 8 years older than my husband. Married nearly 40 years. Well done. Still cuddle and say a saucy love you most days. So thank you very much, Jean, for getting in touch, and congratulations to Jean's husband as well, by the sounds of things. But let's take you through some of the headlines of the day that you might have missed, OK? So it's easy to overlook things. You get swamped, don't you? Stuff about migrants, stuff about climate change. But actually, you know what? There's a world of fun out there. A driver has been slammed for parking on a motorway hard shoulder to avoid paying a £6 airport pickup fee. This is like me at M&S. I'm there with or Aldi, man of the people, where I'm there with loads of shopping. Do you want a bag, sir? No, it's 10p. But anyway, officers from the North West Motorway Police said that the driver parked his Citroen C4 Cactus just outside of Manchester Airport and was waiting to collect people. Drivers are only allowed to stop on a hard shoulder in an emergency, or if they've been told to by police. I like that. A little bit of Mancunian thriftiness. You love to see it. Now, have you ever wanted to try a lion steak? Yep. An elephant kebab? Maybe? Well, New York-based lab-grown meat company Primeval Foods is set to bring a whole host of exotic meats to the market, including zebra, or as they would say, zebra, lion, elephant and tiger. There'll be no need for mass farm exotic animals or butcher the endangered ones, for example, or people that go to Africa and shoot things for fun, as the startup is hoping to replicate the flavour and texture of meat by cultivating the cells inside a lab. There is actually a restaurant, I think I can name it, guys, called Archipelago, and it's in London. Now, I go there, I had camel carpaccio the other week. Alligators, an absolute treat, although, to be fair, I must say the mongoose was underwhelming. But anyway. A mum has married her cat. Yeah, that's right, sticking with the animal theme, to stop landlords forcing her to give up the pet. Now, get this. No, you are really awake. This is a story. The woman tied the knot with her cat, India, in a park ceremony presided over by a legally ordained friend. That's right. She's got friends. She home 2 huskies and a cat. And she was desperate to avoid a repeat. So she said, I can't be without India. She truly is a sensation. She's so friendly and amazing. She's fundamentally the most important thing in my life after my children. You know what? I for all joking aside, because this is bonkers, but all joking aside, pets aren't just pets. They're not property. And for all too often in law, they've been treated as such. So if a dog was nicked, if your dog was nicked, police would treat it like the theft of a bike. But they're not, are they? They're a relative, really. They're a loved one. They're in your home. They're a part of your life. I think a lot of people, frankly, prefer animals, actually, to a lot of people. And so I can understand why this poor lady who's maybe had to rehome 2 huskies and a cat or whatever it was, has done this. I suppose, and just, excuse me for being slightly cynical, if she knows that her lease says no pets, maybe move? But anyway, there we go. OK, who am I to judge? Couldn't possibly judge the woman who's married a cat in a park. This Platinum Jubilee bank holiday will see pubs open for 2 hours longer. Get in. That's right. This is fantastic. Between the 2nd and the 4th of June, you could be toasting the Queen until 1 o'clock in the morning, as opposed to just 11 p.m. A couple of extra hours toasting the Queen. As Priti Patel signs a special law to extend drinking hours for this event of exceptional national significance. Hey, I tell you what, Priti, all is forgiven for what's been going on in the Channel. The fact that you've cracked open the pubs for an extra 2 hours, you can come back, Priti, as far as I'm concerned. Fantastic stuff. And final story of the day. Wembley Stadium has denied claims that their staff used the slop trays that catch spilled over lager to fill pint glasses for punters before charging them, get this, £7.50 for a pint. This is at the Tyson Fury fight. A video showing a worker doing just that was, yes, at that Tyson Fury fight on Saturday, and it went viral on Twitter. But a Wembley Stadium spokesperson said that the employee was just emptying the drip tray before discarding the beer. To be fair, there have been times in my life when I wouldn't have minded that. But anyway, there we go. Right, look, thank you very much, everybody, who's been getting in touch, who's been tuning in, who's been getting in touch online as well as in the inbox. It's been my first solo flight here at To The Point. Don't worry, as far as I understand it, Mercy will be back tomorrow. You won't have to put up with me on my own for another day. Great stuff, people. Thank you very much. That is it from me now at To The Point. But don't go away, because up next is a briefing with the wonderful Gloria De Piero.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. A dry and bright day for many of us. Cloud will build through the afternoon with showers for some, but no really significant rainfall in the forecast for today or the next few days as high pressure builds once again from the north, and we've got this north to northeasterly airflow, so it's turning a little chillier, and we'll notice that at night with a few overnight frosts, but also it's keeping things dry and bright for the vast majority. The best of the sunshine will be across central, southern and western parts of the UK, so for Northern Ireland, Wales, southern England. There'll be a few showers in the thicker cloud across northern and eastern England, and Scotland's going to be mostly dry, if rather cloudy. It will feel cool, particularly along that east coast, 9 to 12 Celsius with a cool easterly breeze, but 15 or 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, Northern Ireland, where we do see some sunny spells. The cloud and any showers tend to fade away overnight, leaving largely clear skies, and under those clear skies, with that colder air in place, we'll see a touch of frost. In some of the sheltered spots across northern parts of the country, -2, -3 Celsius is possible. Could even see a -1 in southern areas. But in urban parts, I think we'll be frost-free, and it will be largely dry and bright once again as we start off Wednesday. Now, Wednesday, on the whole, is a sunnier day for Scotland and northern England, but a cloudier day further south. Nevertheless, 15 to 16 Celsius for southern England, South Wales, and 9 to 12 further north, but feeling more pleasant, I think, with the greater, sunnier skies across Scotland and northern England compared to today, and virtually everywhere will be dry. And really that's the theme that continues for the rest of the week. Thursday, Friday into Saturday as well. High pressure holds on. It won't be entirely sunny all the time. There will be areas of cloud floating around, but it will be largely dry and bright.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence.